Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach, mates. Well, at least for this week, we didn't have the injury carnage that plagued us in round two, but we had a lot of players who probably didn't quite live up to expectations, a la Dan Houston. Um, so what we're going to do is, like we did last week, we're just going to have a quick rundown of our teams and look at some potential trade targets and captaincy and vice captaincies for a very interesting round four. I think this is a very even round coming up. I think there's going to be a few upsets. But anyway, as per normal, I am joined by Thomas. How are you going, Thomas? Must be frustrating watching St Kilda at the minute.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, SuperCoach side's not got much better, unfortunately, but it's almost like the almost season at this point. With every week we're in it for 3 quarters, and it's almost a quarter that stuffs us up at the moment. But I mean, to be honest, it's a pretty tough draw to start the season. So I mean, we played Port after our bye, so I guess if we lose against that mob, then yeah, probably season over already. But I guess we'll say it's probably a must-win game in that sense. But your Pies are doing a lot better, that's for sure. How did you go this week for SuperCoach? Obviously, a tough week if you had Xerri and Houston and whatnot. But how did you go?
Yeah, so obviously, I think the biggest conundrum for me during the week was actually who did I want to put the vice captaincy on. I did think about Nick Dacos, but I thought he might get tagged just because the Giants have done that previously. So I ended up sticking it on Luke Jackson, not realizing that there was a cyclone that basically hit Perth. So he only scored the 108, and I was like, it's in that real awkward range. So I decided to just keep the captaincy on Zach Butters.
Yeah.
He ended up being the third highest scorer in my side for the weekend, which I don't think was too bad. But yeah, overall, scored that 18-28. There were a couple of yeah, I guess frustrating things that happened on the weekend. So I had to use one of the boosts last week
Yeah.
because I just had that much carnage on there. So I brought in Houston and he only scored 61. I think that game on Friday night was a very weird game. It wasn't the greatest game after quarter time.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that he had a bit of a down one. The other trade I did was Tanner Bruin. I felt like I just had to get him in. He only scored the 47, but I think we can give him a bit of a cop out for that because he was basically in the injury wars the whole game. And plus it was pouring down with rain in Geelong, so I think we can give them an out. And I originally brought in Todd Marshall as the third one, but then when he got uh, he was out through injury, I had to quickly make that trade because yeah, I just had Philippou there, and I don't even know how Philippou went this week, but I brought in Harry Sharp instead. He got 71. I think he looks quite settled in that Melbourne lineup. But I guess for me this week, the real pain is Devon Robertson getting suspended. I was sort of relying on him to help get that forward line through. So the fact that he's now out is a bit of a problem for me. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can sort of keep recovering after the debacle that was I think it was round one or round two, when I missed all those players through injury and the bye. I think it was round two. So yeah, my team is hopefully on the comeback trail.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think you did definitely better than I did. I scored just a tick under 1,800. It's been frustrating. I mean, I owned Xerri, had the VC on him, brought him on, and then he decides to wipe blood on McGrath's face.
Yeah,
And
that's
knocks him out
unfortunate.
for 3 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, not much you can do there. But he'll go straight to Gorn for me as a bit of an early trade reveal. But without further ado, I'll bring up, as we did last week, a side-by-side comparison with my side and obviously SC Mate's community side, which is doing a lot better than my side at the moment. This is obviously prior to trades. I've tinkered with my side, haven't released the final trade options. I'll do that at some point tonight. Obviously recording on a Wednesday evening. But looking at the screen there, hopefully we'll test this out this week. If it's too small for you guys on screen, then we'll obviously tinker it again. But at the moment, yeah, looking at the two sides, I think the biggest frustrating thing for me is, I don't know if it's for you, Nathan, as well, but in previous years gone by, it seems like, there's obvious reasons why teams may not be doing so well. Maybe they're missing, 2 to 3 premiums or having XYZ mistake. But this year in particular, out of anything, it seems you make one tiny slip up and it costs you, a couple 100 points straight away. And Xerri versus Jackson's a classic example where it maybe, 40 points is not big, but it is big at the moment in the scope of things. Jackson was in my side all week and decided to get Xerri in after his 199, and now I've got to trade him straight back out again and probably going to go gone. But yeah, definitely frustrating for sure. But looking on the back line there, Dacos, Houston, this is obviously the community side on the left of your screen. Dacos, Houston, I don't know, I'll let you talk a bit about Houston's role at the moment, but from what I saw, like, it was always going to happen, let's be honest, when everyone brings him in and he decides to completely shit the bed with a 61, which is definitely disappointing. Just seemed really, I think the biggest kind of red flag that people were kind of eyeing off on Twitter before the game was that obviously with Moore and Howe back, it was going to cause a bit of problem for him. I don't know how you saw it, Nathan. I'll let you speak on that in a minute, but I don't know how much that actually impacted him, but it just seemed like in comparison to the game prior to his bye, he just seemed to do a lot of sideways, backwards chip kicks that just really didn't do much. He probably salvaged his score in the end. I think he scored a goal quite late in the piece, which he could have got a sub 50 score there, which would have been really disappointing. Caleb Wins is in my trade plans this week for my own side, but it's just one of those things where, look, it's just frustrating in the fact that he scored a 70, which is okay. He scored about almost 100 Dream Team. AFL Fantasy. So, like, look, let's be honest, it's not a bad score. But I don't know. I don't think his ceiling's going to be 100 to 90. Look, we're not expecting that at that price, but it's just one of those things that I'd rather get out of the pack pick than in. So he's one of the chopping block for our SC mate side. Obviously, the rookies didn't play that were necessary. Josh Lindsay looked like he was going to turn up at one point, but slowed right down. He looks to be pretty solid pick regardless. But I guess the biggest question here, Nathan, is obviously Houston you brought in. You probably don't trade him out straight away, but what are your thoughts seeing Houston as well? Being a Pies fan and probably being a bit more knowledgeable than I am in Pies footy, what are your thoughts on Houston off the bat?
Yeah, well, it is quite frustrating, the Houston discussion. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I'm just trying to quickly get up his stats from that game. If I can have a look. No, I can't have a look. All right, so I have to talk about the club. So this year so far, so across the first 3 rounds that Collingwood have played in, so there's a stat called kick rating, which is basically how your side does with in terms of how threatening their kicks are. And it basically is if you kick the ball into the corridor, your kicks are a lot more threatening than going sideways or, out to the boundary line and whatnot. So this year so far, Collingwood are a bottom 5 side in terms of that threat rating. So what that means is that Collingwood are taking very safe kicks, and they're not really looking to challenge offensively. They're more trying to protect their backline. Now, I think that system is all good and well, but I don't think that system suits Dan Houston, because I think he is probably, as we've mentioned many times, he is genuinely one of the best kicks in the AFL. So for him to come into a side that currently at this stage, I know we're only 3 rounds or 4 rounds in, but they're not really threatening with their ball use. I'm not. Yeah, as I said, it's a tricky one because I think he's going to be the key, person by foot who is going to take on those, more challenging and threatening kicks. But I just don't know if that's going to be the Collingwood game plan. Although the only thing I will say about the Collingwood thing as well is that they currently rank 6 in terms of transitioning the ball from their back half or their back 50 to their forward 50. So they're doing it the slow way. I just wish that they played more like they did in the first quarter more regularly and not just basically get to quarter time and just decide to shut up shop, because that's basically what, at least from my perspective, being at the ground, it looks like that's what happened, was that both sides were happy to throw the ball into the corridor, and then it got to quarter time. Both the coaches got their troops back together, and they said, this is way too fast for our liking. Let's just slow this down. And then that's when I think all the chip mark stuff started, and the corridor use became a lot less. So I don't think that style of play that Collingwood are playing now is going to necessarily win in 2026 in those big games, such as on Thursday night against the Brisbane Lions. I think they are going to have to be more threatening. And I think Houston's a massive part of that. So, yeah, I'm happy to give him another week. But yes, it is frustrating. Just watching the way Collingwood are kicking the ball at the minute is just safe, and I don't think it's really suiting him and the way that he wants to play.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Nathan. I think, yes, McRae came out and said we're going to basically feed him the ball as that general off halfback, as per what Port Adelaide were doing. Having said that, he plays it a little bit differently in the Pies, and that might have impacted his score last week. But who knows? It's kind of early days still. I definitely wouldn't trade him out after one game. If you traded him in, that seems to.
Oh no, don't trade him out. Yeah.
No. Darcy Moore being out for the next month may help him as well. I think, as a defensive unit, Collingwood seemed to like to chip the ball around a lot more than what Port did. Port just got it in Walsh's hands, got it in Houston's hands as quick as possible, and then allowed him to kick it as far as possible. But yeah, like Collingwood have a lot more kind of structure down back where they like to build up the play a different way. So yeah, he's definitely one that, look, to be honest, was always going to probably not score as nicely when everyone decided to bring him in that week. So, or last week, sorry. But yeah, he's one to watch and just monitor at this stage, but he's very capable of scoring. Even at Port Adelaide, he put out these stinking scores as well. It's not uncommon for Houston. I've just realised my team, I've done it. I've put the trades in. I forgot to undo them, but that's fine. Moving on to the midfield, looking at the SC Mates team, Butters had the captaincy on him. Definitely, very impressive. Look, had to step up for Port. I mean, they lost against West Coast, which is another whole issue in itself, but was very, very impressive. Looked in a little bit of trouble when he got knocked by Dev Robertson, but he seemed to be okay after that and showed why is one of the best elite players in the game. Nick Dacos, if you don't have him, get him 150. I think we're going to see more of that and I'm a big advocate in this season where I'm going to use that example of, say, Richards and Dacos. The game's going to favour those fast, speedy midfielders a lot more, I think, with how the game's going. With regards to scoring, Max Holmes is a conduit of that as well, where he's scoring very well as well. We're going to probably see those 130s, 140s from Dacos, so get him in. No Anderson off a bye. Tanner Bruin, I was speaking to a mate yesterday at the soccer because he's obviously got Bruin as well, and he watched the game. I didn't, but he was saying that Bruin has a very average role at the moment, which is not great for his scoring. I think we got sucked in. A lot of people, including myself, got sucked into that kind of halfback role, which probably didn't stick. It was a lot of warning signs in round one when he was playing he was pushing to the midfield, wing, half forward, like kind of around the ball, but probably needed a lot of disposals to get a good score. So, yeah, definitely a bit unlucky, like you, Nathan, if you brought him in for that 47. Having said that, he's very capable of scoring well, but I wouldn't be surprised if the mean kind of averages out to a lower score. Sam Grill, rookies have done their job. Jagger Smith, get him. Maybe I don't know why you wouldn't have him in, but arguably scoring like a premium at the moment. And Blameries looks really impressive off halfback. I saw a lot of that North game and going on Friday as well. So, yeah, Blameries looks really, really impressive off halfback. He looks like a good scorer. I thought he was kind of like an impact player, but he just seems to pick it up very, very nicely. Caniglio, I've got him in the SC Mate squad. He's one that's going to go this week alongside Parrish. I think both of them is kind of reflective of the mid prices that just haven't stunk it up. Oh, have stunken up, sorry. Look, if you have those mid prices, it's unfortunate because I know for my own personal side, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen there, I brought in Bontempelli this week. That's probably what I should have started with, so it's burnt me a fair few trades to get there, but Cogs had that same issue as say Bruin had, where he had a really bad role and played it really well, and there were warning signs when he got that 60 odd score the round before St Kilda, and then he gets a 40 odd. So yeah, he has to go, I think. And Parrish, alongside majority of Essendon's team, just looks hopelessly slow, which has been a bit unfortunate for Bomber supporters. I expected a lot more from Parrish, but he looks behind the 8 ball in most contests, which is frustrating. And I think you just got to get out of that pick as quick as you can because, not many mid prices have worked at all, particularly in the midfield. I mean, Young's injured now for 3+ weeks, so he's a no-go there. But what are your thoughts, Nathan? Because obviously, did you go down the same route? I don't quite remember your side, but did you go down that same route of, say, Parrish, Cogs and Young, or did you stick fat to guns and rookies?
No, so I just had Parrish at the start. But yes, I do agree. It is frustrating when you pick up these players. But I will give an out to Canterbury because right now, so I just had a quick look right now. So Geelong this year so far, all right. So last year I've just got last year's stats up here right now. So with the football, they currently rank 15th in terms of what they're doing with the football. But if you break it down further into key components of that, all right. So one of the if I look at 3 of the 4 components, the fourth one's their kick rating. So getting possession chains on the scoreboard. Geelong last year was second. 3 rounds in, they're 14th. Ball movement, they're ball movement from one end of the ground to the other. Last year they were number 1, and this year they're 13th. And then scores per inside 50. Last year they were second. This year they're 17th. So they are just not clicking offensively at the minute. So I think if Geelong can get that offensive game going that we know, I can see Tanner Bruin's scoring sort of going back, going upwards and beyond. But yeah, as for the rest of the midfield, it is frustrating when these mid prices don't perform. I guess at Essendon there's massive problems at Essendon, especially defensively. We've touched on this last year. They're basically in the red, so they're basically in the bottom 6 in just about every single defensive stat, which unfortunately for guys like Parrish, it just isn't going to get it done. So that's why Essendon haven't been great this year. And at the Giants, I think the injuries are starting to sort of pile up a little bit. I actually had huge hopes this year for the Giants. I felt like that they got a very cushy draw as opposed to where they finished last year. But I think those injuries are starting to perhaps, catch up with them a little bit. So, unfortunately for those of us who have gone down the mid-price route, I think this is probably a great lesson for everyone, is perhaps to have a look and realize that they're priced at that point for a reason. But yes, it is frustrating, especially when you trade in mid prices because they're doing well and then they shit the bed. So look, it is what it is. You just got to live with your decisions, I suppose.
Yeah, that's for sure. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, like the mid-price option looked very enticing. You look at Young and Parrish's and even Caniglio's scoring history, and they're very capable of scoring well, but there's obviously a reason why they're priced that way, and I guess it probably didn't expect to all hit at once. But moving on to the ruck line, I'll talk about the trades later on the right-hand side of my screen, because obviously the differentials between those two sides that didn't play pretty much with Anderson and Richards. But looking at the ruck line, Luke Jackson, had a really probably solid game, all things considered. Could have scored a 150. I think he went 1 goal 4, but you probably give him a pass mark anyway because of the cyclone potential and the weather they were playing in. But yeah, he's one that looked really super consistent. I think if it wasn't for Xerri, I would have brought him in this week. But yeah, 108, super consistent game. Lockie McAndrew, probably not as consistent as he was last 2 games, but I give him a pass because of his rookie price. The downside is they could call up Sam Jacobs this week, which could be a bit of a problem if that's the case. That's probably what scared me off to trading Gawn or Xerri to Gawn this week in my own side, because I don't like the idea of having McAndrew and Jacobs, or if they drop McAndrew, then you've got some problems there.
You mean Riley O'Brien?
Sorry, what did I say? Yeah, Riley
Sam
O'Brien.
Jacobs.
Not Sam Jacobs.
Last from the past there, Sam Jacobs.
5 years back. No, sorry, Riley O'Brien. Yeah, scored about 161 in the sample, which is obviously not that hard to do. But yeah, I think there's problems there if you have McAndrew at R2 and Sam Jacobs come back. But yeah, Gawn looks really impressive.
Riley O'Brien, not Sam Jacobs.
Riley O'Brien. It's been a long day. But yeah, I guess the biggest talking point here is Tristan Xerri, Nathan. What are your thoughts? I don't know if you own him. I don't think you own him, no?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, so you avoided him. So obviously he did the stupidity of wiping blood on McGrath's face. Look, he got caught up in the act, and I guess that's the frustrating part of it all. It was more of a reaction to what McGrath was taunting with. There's obviously no excuse regardless, but out for 3 weeks. The AFL called it a disgraceful act, which I guess is whatever. But what are your thoughts on the trades, Nathan? Because there's probably 2 ways you can go here, or 3 ways. You can probably go down to save some money if you need a rookie. Go to a Gawn, which I think is probably the way to go. Gawn looks really impressive. I think with Xerri and the new ruck rule, look, he hasn't looked amazing. He probably dominated Flynn like insane, and then had a pretty easy ruck matchup the week before. But even in his preseason game, he looked average. The bloke can't jump, which is the biggest problem. So his kind of athleticism is really quelled in that sense, and then he kind of gets his scores off tackles and hit outs to advantage when he does win the ruck battle. So yeah, Gawn is a little bit more athletic and can get a lot of points around the ground, which is probably why he scored so well. Probably the other option that I'm thinking of is flipping to Bont straight away. That seems a no-brainer if you don't have Bont and you have the heavy hitters in the ruck. But what are your thoughts on trading Xerri, or is there merit in holding him at all with 3 weeks, obviously?
I think if it was any other position on the ground, I think I would probably hold for 3 weeks, especially if you had McAndrew as your R3. But I think the fact that he's probably your R1 and you're probably relying on him to help you score, yeah, I think he has to go. I think Gawn and Jackson are both equally great options. And that's purely, having a look at key statistics here for Ruckman so far this year. So Fremantle this year so far averaging the most hitouts to advantage. They've had the most hitouts to first possession, and they've had the most hitouts to clearance so far. And Melbourne, which is a large part in Matt Gawn, are basically second in those same areas. So I don't think you can go wrong either way, to be honest. I think Jackson and Gawn are probably right now at least the 2 options. The other one is Tim English, who actually has had an all right start to the year, and the Western Bulldogs ruck stats aren't actually disgraceful, to say the least. They've got no red. Most of them are in the green. So I think it's probably between Jackson, Gawn, and English. I don't think I'd be going anywhere else. So have a look at one of those three and just pick the one who best suits your side. I think the good thing with English now is that he's had his bye, so he won't have another bye for probably another 8 or so weeks. So I guess it's up to whoever you want to back in to score the most. But I think Jackson, Gawn, and English are probably the three options that I would head towards.
Yeah, I think look, he'd be brave, man, to go. I've seen a few, people floating that Ned Reeves idea as an option, but I probably wouldn't go there, to be brutally honest. He's one I'd probably avoid altogether. But yeah, I think the heavy hitters are the way to go. I think Gawn's probably the smartest move. We know he's uber consistent, and we, as much as Xerri has scored very nicely, we don't know how he's going to go in those tougher ruck matchups because he's only had the easy ones so far. So there's another kind of spanner in the works. But I think, if you're chasing rank and don't have cover, I think you probably want to get rid of him anyway. But moving on to the forward line here, pretty similar to forward lines. I think the forward line's probably the hardest to pick with the premiums that they have available. If you have Sheasel already, which 99% of the competition do. Sheasel looks really, really impressive, playing wherever he wants, whenever he wants, really just playing that midfield role, floating back a little bit, getting those possessions. He's probably found his right spot at North. A genuine VC and C option most weeks, I think, at the moment, depending on matchup. Sam Laylor in the SuperCoach side, he's one that's probably been pretty, not average, but you take his scores at the moment with the forward line. He looks, okay. Like Richmond are not going to do that well, so he's not going to get that much of the ball when they get dominated. But he seems like his floor isn't that bad. He was kind of a POD pick. I wasn't expecting a huge amount, but that was one that was put to the vote there. But he's going to probably hold for a little bit longer. Buderek had the bye. Flanders, look, he's going to build into that midfield as a St Kilda supporter. I think I've seen people trading him out. That seems a bit insane to me. Look, we haven't won games at the moment. That's probably the main thing. And I think if we start getting on the winning end of things, we're going to see the best of Flanders. And as this, as he builds into that midfield system, as I said in previous episodes, that midfield system is quite new as well with Philippou, Garcia, Naz, and TDK. So it's going to take a while for it to gel. Philippou, I think he still had money to make. He had about 50% or 40% game time last week, and that's building slowly. As long as he stays on the track, I don't see why he'd get rid of him. Braden Cook, really, really impressive from Adelaide. 80 points. Looked okay. Like, I almost had PTSD from picking Adelaide forward players. I don't remember who it was, but it was number 10 from the Crows. I think Nathan would find him down. But, yeah, he was one that I brought him last season and was really, really frustrating for me as a forward pick because he was just ended up being a dead rookie.
Luke Pedlar.
Yeah, Pedlar, yeah. He was a rookie price player last year that I brought in kind of midway through or in the latter parts of the season. He completely shut the bed after 2 games, but Cook seems pretty good. So he's one that I probably wouldn't get now after his price rise, but he's been really impressive so far. Yeah, really frustrating in the sense of Dev Robertson and Todd Marshall. It seems to me that he isn't playing again this week with his injury, which is definitely frustrating because he looked really impressive so far. So I don't think I'll trade out. I'd be stupid to trade out either, I think, unless you find out Marshall's injuries long term. But Robertson, a stupid thing to do. I don't like him as a... Look, he probably salvaged his score a little bit, but hate him as a tagging option. I don't think that suits him at all. He didn't do much at all to nullify Butters. So I think that's a hard pass when it comes to tagging roles for Dev. But yeah, I think you probably wouldn't trade out either of them and just cop that you've got best 18 and hopefully you've got a bit of cover on the bench. I mean, for me, the Saints boys are on the bench and that doesn't help with the bye, but there's not much I can do. I don't think I'll flip around trades just to, have cover. But I'll see. I don't know, because I think if you are looking for a forward option, you've got Jack Lukosius, who looks okay, but I probably wouldn't trust. Haven't watched enough Port games to kind of make a educated guess at that. But Shai Bolton's probably another one, has looked insane in his games in the midfield with Young being injured. But I've owned Bolton in the past, and he has a very good habit of doing that. Absolutely shit in the bed for the remainder of the season. But how did your forward line fare, Nathan? Any differences or pretty much the same?
Yeah, well, as I said, other than Harry Sheasel, and I would say Sam Lawler's sort of doing his job. Everyone else is just and Flanders actually. I think Flanders has done all right other than his first game. But yeah, everyone else needs and obviously the rookies as well. But the main frustration at the minute for mine is the goalie, who was a bit of a risky point of difference. I was hoping he'd get more midfield time than what he has. But he's just not he's just not having the impact on the game. So, I guess for me, I'm a bit lucky because I actually had that much carnage last week that I actually had to keep Christian Petrarca on the bench last week. That's how much carnage my side had. So, having a look at trade options this week, it was very, very, it was very, very scarce in terms of trade options that I thought were viable. So the one I did look at was Shea Bolton at Fremantle, but the fact that they're playing Adelaide concerns me, given that Adelaide are the best side in the league defensively, according to the rating system. So that does worry me a little bit with the way Fremantle are playing and the fact that it's in Adelaide as well. And the fact that they're 1 and 2 as well. I think they've got a lot to play for this week, Adelaide. I don't think they want to go 1 and 3. So yeah, I think that is a bit of a worry for me, the Bolton pick. And then there wasn't really anyone else on there that I liked. If I can just get up the forwards now. So the higher guys, so guys like Harvey Thomas and Max Haller are probably points of difference, are all on the bye this week. Josh Tracy, I think he's a good pick, but again, it's just the key forwards. Justin McInerney, I think if Errol Goodin wasn't injured, I think he probably would have been the one to come in for Petrarca last week, because he had a really good role there at Sydney, but I think it's just that role now that it worries me a bit. Myers is playing more midfield time, and then obviously the main one was Kasai Pickett. Now, unfortunately for Kasai Pickett, you don't get to play a 1/2 Carlton every week. So I think I don't know who Melbourne have got this week. I'll quickly have to have a look. They've got Gold Coast, so I think that's a really tough game for Melbourne. Although it's saying that Damien Hardwick, we know he doesn't like tagging, so he might have a cooler, but he's probably not going to cop a full blown tag. So yeah, as I said, I think trades in the forward line at the minute are very, very scarce. There's just not the quality down there. So yeah, I think it's been a very tough start to the year with a lot of those defender and midfielder premiums getting injured. Well, a lot of the popular ones anyway. And then it doesn't help that, the number one ruckman from last year decides to put blood on someone else's face. So I think it's basically at the minute it feels like a bit of just put the side out and hope that they all get through unscathed at the minute. That's what you're thinking. But yes, it has been very, very hard start to the year, I think, for a lot of people. Just with the injury carnage and the weather last week as well. For those of you who live outside Victoria, the weather here last weekend, especially early on in the week, wasn't great. So, it's been a terribly frustrating start, I think, to the year for SuperCoach.
Yeah, I think it's hit everyone pretty hard. I haven't seen many teams on socials that have been blessed with a good run so far. It'd be interesting to see how the top teams look like and what they're doing a little bit differently to get there. But it seems it's luck, if anything, at the moment. It doesn't seem there's much in it. So I guess the kind of main message out of that is I wouldn't be too stressed if you're down the dumps at the moment with your team. There's not much in it between points at the moment. But having said that, there's always time to chase ground. Trades-wise, for me this week, I think I've kept it pretty simple. And unfortunately for me, I've had to use another boost because I just need to get myself out of a hole in my own side. I'll post trades out later for the SC Community Mates team. For my own side, yeah, Bontempelli comes straight in for Xerri. That would seemed obvious enough. I think it was Xerri and I don't know. Let me double check who I actually brought in because I was meant to undo it. But yeah, Xerri came out straight for Gorn. And then for Bontempelli, I upgraded. Darcy Parish went up to Bontempelli. And then I've actually gone Caleb Wins. This might backfire badly, but I've gone Caleb Windsor out to Willem Dersma. Willem Dersma's got a negative 33 break even. I think Windsor's got probably a 50-odd break even. I don't think he's got much cash to make. Yeah, 51 against a tough Gold Coast side. Look, he was probably a dodgy pick, but Willem Dersma, negative 33 break even. Yes, West Coast have probably had not the hardest draw in the world, but looks really, really impressive, Dersma, so far. Even on the commentary, they've been saying he's the best Dersma brother out there at the moment, and his scores back it up. Look, there was probably doubts about paying top dollar for him, but he definitely hasn't disappointed. I'm hoping that I haven't jumped one too late, but I think that's where I'm going at. If you're looking at other options to trade in, if you've got Bont, you've got Gorn. Jack Lukosius is one that sprung to mind as a very common option this round so far. If I'm just looking at the top trade-ins in at the moment, let me just bring it back to my own screen. If you look at the top trades in the top 1%, if I flick that across. Yeah, Max Oscar Steen, like Jack Lukosius. Look, I don't know about Jack Lukosius. He's playing Richmond, which is obviously quite good for him. He's one that I've floated with the idea as well. I looked at his scores prior, so he's went 95 and then 110. So he didn't play round one, but won 110, 95, scored the 3 goals to get to 110, which is not too bad. I guess the positive thing for Lukosius is that a 95 in his second round for not doing too much. I think he only scored 1 goal in the second round. Third round. So, look, he's one that I could easily pivot from Dersma to Lukosius. I don't know. I'm probably torn on that. I probably will suss it out. I guess the benefit of having Lukosius instead of Dersma and Lukosius plays forward, that covers one of my Marshall and Robertson injuries, which is obviously beneficial because I've got Blame Aries, Watkins, and Blame Aries and Watkins both playing. And West Coast have a much tougher draw coming up. So, yeah, look, it'll be a 50-50. I'll see how I go, but the Lukosius could come in. Oscar Steen, I'll get your thoughts when you talk about your trades, Nath, but Steen I wouldn't bring in at all first game. Yes, he's looked very impressive. Ruck forward helps, but he'd be a good rookie to trade into if he keeps his spot. Max Holmes is another one that is definitely very, very impressive. I really like how he played. He was in my trade plans early on. I've just gone because I kind of got scared off the fact that Riley O'Brien could come back anytime, and then McAndrew, who knows what happens with him. So just locking down Gordon and English, I think, is my R1, R2 for the season. But he's one that he's got a 95 break even, so I don't think he's going to pivot too much in price, but he's one to look at. Christopher Xerri is another mid-forward option for Freo. Small forward, I believe. Look, I wouldn't probably bother unless you're desperate. Scored 73 round 2, then scored 31. He's got a negative 45 break even because it's his bubble game. So there's another one to look at. And then that's about as far as I'd go with trades. What are you looking at? What are you looking at, Nathan, obviously on your side? Because you probably are in a better position than I am, but I know there's a lot of carnage going around.
Yeah, well, I'll just quickly mention it while I'm on here. So the top side this year so far, they're 20 points clear of second place, but they've basically got no bench cover. So the number one side currently has Dirksen, Stade, I think Patrick Stade, Reedy, and Kalani White on their bench. Who obviously Kalani White's injured. So I think that's sort of a sign of how tough a start it's been to the year, with the fact that the number one ranked side in SuperCoach has basically players who have not played a game yet on the bench. Obviously, well done to that coach. My trade plans for this week. So as I said, I think because I've kept Petrarca, yeah, I think I've got to move him on this week. It's just a question of who. There's not really a lot of options out there. I think Jack Ross at Richmond, I think they're going to need those experienced players. So at this stage, I've gone for Jack Ross, but I'm not completely sold on it, and it probably won't stay that way by the end of the week. I would definitely not be trading in Oscar Steen this week. I know he's been named, but I thought everyone would have learned from Millen Murdoch to not bring a rookie in after one game, because as we saw with poor old Murdoch, he's injured and he won't probably play again for a couple more weeks. So you just can't be doing that with rookies. Wait until they've played the second game and get named for the third game. But yeah, other than that, so far I haven't really given much thought. I think Jack Howe at St Kilda, I don't think he's got long-term aspirations. I don't think Blackiston's got long-term aspirations either. So yeah, there's a few little holes in my side at the minute which I'm trying to sort of fix. So yeah, I don't know other than probably Petrarca what I'll do this week. Yeah, I think it's probably a bit early in the week for that, because I know I probably won't be trading in any Collingwood players or any Brisbane players. So it's probably something I'll have a deeper look at, over the next 24 to 48 hours. But yeah, at this stage for me, it's just going to be what to do with Petrarca. And that Fremantle forward as well, I definitely wouldn't be trading in that small Fremantle forward. I don't know what his name is. Thomas, maybe you can help me out there. If that Fremantle
Scary, I think his name is.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be trading him in this week because, as I said, Fremantle playing Adelaide. Adelaide are the number one defensive side currently in the AFL. I think scoring's going to be very tough for those Fremantle small forwards. So he might only be in your side for a couple of weeks, and then it's probably time to get rid of him. I just don't think that that's worth the trade. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting week. I think this is the make or break week, going to be the make or break week with a lot of carnage sort of out there already across the first few seasons. I think, those trades that people have made, with Rosie and Petrarca, I think are going to really start setting the, they're going to really start setting the field aside in terms of, ranking and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's vital now that you start sort of worrying about who you're trading in. Because I think that at this stage, I think given the fact that most people had the same side, and now because of all the injuries to those, common players, I think, the trades that you've made for Rosie and Petrarca and, those guys, I think are going to really be the ones that set the ranks apart throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I do agree on that. I'd be also wary, Nathan, if you're thinking about trading Petrarca. He could come in against his old side coming up. I think there might be a late in for Petrarca. A watch on that. I think he might be up for that. But so we'll see how he goes. But I probably wouldn't trade him if you've held him already. I think they're looking at him closer rather than far away with his rehab. But I think, as Nathan said, he's spot on. I think this is a time to make moves if you're behind the eight ball, and this is probably where we see teams start to differentiate a little bit. But yeah, VCCs, I'll put a post up later with regards to the SC Mates options. But yeah, look, to be honest,
Nick Dacos for mine.
Nick Dacos, yeah, he's a really good one. I can't see Berry trying to run with him. You look at that North game, who knows? Anyone with North is pretty good at the moment. Sheasel, if you want a VC there. Port, Richmond, I could see. Butters going absolutely bananas in that game as a bit of a good game to go against. Sydney, West Coast, I probably wouldn't go anyone there. Dogs, Essendon, that's one to definitely target as well. I can't see anyone running with Bontempelli. He's probably my automatic captain first week owning him, so probably apologies there with him going tits up late on Sunday. But other than that, hopefully you've got your team sorted for round 4, and definitely, these buys are coming towards the end, and thank fuck for that, because they've been definitely frustrating to deal with. But hopefully your team has survived the carnage thus far, and you get a good side on the park for round 4. And other than that, we'll catch you for the end of round 4.